Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we're going to be talking about a handful of video game related crowdfunding scams, right? Stuff on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, so on and so forth. Maybe scam is a little too harsh, but definitely shady as heck, right? So most of these things we've spoke about on the channel before, and a couple of them people have brought up to me very recently, and I decided, you know what, instead of doing a single video on each one of these systems, why not just kind of briefly go over some of my thoughts on what's going on with these things. So first up, we have Polymega. We're going to be talking about Atari VCS, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum Vega, and the Dreamcade Replay. And we'll go into some detail on those. But first up, Polymega, the system that a lot of people were excited for, right? The FPGA stackable system that play all your consoles. It did look kind of neat. The user interface looks kind of neat, and then everything just kind of shifted and no longer an FPGA based system. Well, there's really not a lot going on here. Looking through their tweets and some of the messages I've received concerning them, people are just like, you know, these guys aren't really talking about anything, since all of us were kind of putting them on blast about, hey, like, show us some actual gameplay with the discs and whatnot, because, you know, emulation with Saturn and things like that, because this is an emulation machine. Now people on their Facebook and on their Twitter, like, okay, so like right here, got an idea for an NES game? Use the NES Maker software. People are like, so you want us to make games for you guys for free to put on your system? Like, they're gonna have a little special playlist, all that kind of stuff. But these guys are like, look, you know, we don't have much to say. Like, they're not tweeting out, they're not posting social media things right now because they are working round the clock to get this emulator box ready to go, right? They're putting in a lot of time and effort for these things. When you look at their website with their crowdfunding, they hit $610,000, not very much. Didn't hit any of the other tiers where there was some other things going on. It was just level 1 reward, user interface light skin. So really no extras, no promises going to be happening here. Who knows when this thing is going to ship, but I do believe they are talking about next month. They're going to have some more information. They're talking about that they'll have some updates in March. It is March already, so let's see where that goes. Not really a lot to talk about with the Polymega at this time. It is what it is. A lot of people were still excited for it. I think it was a neat idea to begin with when it was FPGA, you know, module based, like kind of hybrid FPGA, whatever the heck that meant, right? It just seemed really ambitious, and they're not going to be delivering what they originally spoke about. That's been talked about to death. Now we're just waiting for this thing to be released. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on whatever they want to talk about in March, unless it's fairly typical with a lot of these companies saying, hey, we're going to speak on these things at a certain point and give you a time frame, and then it just never happens. But we're going to keep tabs. I will let you know. So that's it for Polymega. Not a lot going on at this moment. Now, Atari VCS, really the one that a lot of people were hitting me up on, because there's a lot of weirdness going on here. Updates. When you look at these guys and their updates, promoting Arcade 1-Up with some giveaways and just giving away hats, and then some other update, like, okay, behind the scenes, and then your biggest pictures in Arcade 1-Up. And this was back December, a week before Christmas or so. These are the only updates that have been up here. This most recent one was February 4th, where they're just announcing, like, hey, these are the people who won a hat and won an Arcade 1-Up that probably has issues. You know what I'm saying? So those aren't even updates. Those are contests. Those are giveaways. Kind of strange. Going back, the only other stuff is like, hey, you know, we've got this, I believe the Baccarat stuff, like, hey, we're selling shirts. Like, really? Those are the only updates we're getting from these guys on the Atari VCS. A lot of people are concerned with this. What's going on? Why the radio silence? People are losing faith. I've gotten several messages from people saying that these guys are like deleting messages and blocking people, doing all sorts of craziness, and nobody's really getting answers. They have an estimated delivery of July 2019. That's right around the corner, my friends. What is that? 3 months away? There is no flipping way that this thing that they raised with whatever other contributions they got, nearly $4 million, there is no way this thing is going to be delivered in July. There is no way it's going to be delivered in August, September, October. I'm willing to bet if this thing does come out summertime to fall, it's definitely not coming out in July. It's not coming out in the beginning of summer. There's no way. If it comes out around fall, it's just going to be a rush job. The reason is because this thing should already be in production, essentially, for it to have that estimated delivery. Okay, an estimate, it's just an estimate. They don't have to necessarily deliver by then. That's just when they were aiming for it. But just speaking honestly, there's no way this thing is going to be delivered by then. There has been no word, no news concerning anything with this system, no updates, nothing. Nobody knows what's going on with this besides all the little scandals and controversies that we've already spoke about. Them showcasing games that weren't even on the system, playing it through something, you know, that's all in the past. If you want to look at that stuff, I'll have a playlist of all my crowdfunding stuff that you could take a look at that we've spoke on in the past. But yeah, there's no news here. The only real news, which is from a few months back, with the most recent update being second week of February, is that our little buddy Fergal Mac Conalingus, whatever the hell his name is suing Atari Gamebox LLC. So this could stunt them getting this thing going because they're dealing with this dude saying, hey, you guys owe me money. Like, he was the guy he was the head guy for the Atari VCS until whatever the heck happened, but now he's suing them. So that's tying up some stuff here. Probably the funds that you guys put into this thing. I didn't back this thing. This is the problem with these Indiegogo, especially Indiegogo. You don't have to prove anything. Even with Kickstarter, there's a lot of scams going on there. Things that people promising things that can't even possibly happen. And it's just redonkulous. The Atari VCS, sure, it's something that could happen, but when you're over-promising, when you're having so many issues with your brand and who you've been tied to, it just makes it hard to believe that certain things are gonna happen. There's definitely people excited for the Atari VCS, and there's still a lot of people who are like, "No, this is not right. There's something wrong here. I'm not buying into this." I was one of them. I'm not buying into this thing. I was a little intrigued at one point, but kind of lost that interest, especially when it was on Indiegogo. Just $329, like whatever the prices were, $300, $230, whatever, man. We'll have to wait and see. But with Fergal Mac suing these guys, who knows when the heck this is gonna come out? Who knows how it's gonna work? But hopefully these guys actually wind up giving some updates instead of just being silent and deleting, you know, criticisms and stuff like that. We'll just have to wait and see, man. Now, the big one for a lot of people, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum Vega Plus, the little handheld. This is one I did not closely follow, but I did kind of keep, you know, a little bit of tabs on it. A few people were messaging me about this, and essentially, little console, same thing, Indiegogo. Whenever you see a console on Indiegogo, man, just run. Just don't even bother with this crap, right? These guys, man, they put out this little handheld, you know, they got, what is that, 512,000. Well, okay, we'll read US because I don't understand these currencies here. They got 675,000 US dollars for this little crowdfunding expedition that they went on. They made a bunch of promises, 1,000 games, all this quality stuff, the people who were involved with it, the screen, how everything was gonna work. And once they started delivering, you know, a handful of them got out there and it was just cheap crap. The buttons felt like crap, the D-pad was crap. It turned out they were just using an open source emulator, that kind of thing. They just didn't deliver on what was promised. It was just like one of these little handhelds you could buy on Amazon for 20 bucks, but people were spending over $100, $130 for these things. Well, the good news, it might be a little late now, but I know the website is still taking claims. But if you were a backer, you're now a creditor. And like this article says on the register, you should probably act fast. So if you weren't aware of this and you back these guys, there is a link on this article right here. Let me pull it up. Where you put in your name, your email, your backer number, how much money you backed. And if you read all this, I'm not going to go through everything. Essentially, you know, the company's under, somebody else took over. They're trying to deal with, you know, liquidating everything, and anybody who's claiming, you know, damages like, hey, you know, I didn't get what was delivered, I didn't get what was promised, or, you know, they didn't deliver any of this stuff, I want my damn money back. You could possibly get your money back. They're saying that the representative of this, they're not taking a cut of any of the money, you know, anything like that, that they're going to be trying to get everybody their money back. So you can go ahead and fill that out. I think there might be a couple days left to get in on that before it goes to the courts over there. But definitely keep tabs on that if you were in the ZX Spectrum. But if you were, you know, one of the handful of people, it wasn't a huge thing. They did, you know, how well did they do here? How many backers did they have? Just under 5,000. It's still a lot of people in the grand scheme of things. It's not really a lot of people, but it's a pretty big number of people. And, you know, looking into the ZX Spectrum Vega, there's a lot of community websites, a lot of forums and stuff where people got their, you know, each other's back on this. You know, people working together, people keeping databases on requests, and you know, this company was denying refund requests, deleting, blocking people, just like the Atari VCS. Once you start hearing that kind of stuff, you know there's a freaking issue. So I'm sure most of the people who were following this, they probably got on that list, you know, who weren't satisfied. Maybe there were some people satisfied, I don't know. But there we go for that. The last one I want to quickly speak on, the Dreamcade Replay. Yes, this was delivered to everybody. I haven't heard of anybody not getting theirs. I mean, there was a lot of delays and stuff like that. That's what it was supposed to look like. That's not what we got. We just got a little cheap Chinese off-the-shelf case, you know, whatever the system was. Mine is just thrown in a box somewhere. This kind of leads me into what my message with all this stuff is, but they delivered this thing, one console to fool them all. Oh, I mean to rule them all. It was supposed to be very simple, you know, all that kind of stuff. Essentially, all it was just some little PC off of the shelf with a user interface, a little front end that they already had designed. Don't get it twisted, peoples. They already used this front end on their big machines that they sell and custom make for people. So what was the real work involved in here? Maybe some tweaks to it to run on this system, but then there was just so many damn issues to begin with. Controller configurations, I've showed in videos, had tons of issues with that. You know, screen tearing, just poor emulation, poor compatibility, you know, controller compatibility issues, syncing those controllers, all those kind of things. People's systems being bricked, people's systems, the user interface not working. So many damn issues with this device, and they just, it kind of seems like it's over. You know, there's some updates that they're talking about, but, you know, I don't even know what they've done with this thing. Like, hey, we're going to be pushing out some, you know, a big update for the system to fix a bunch of stuff. I haven't heard anything. The last update that they talked about was in January. Sure, they have a community forum. I kind of stay away from that thing because it's, sure, there's some help there, but for this thing being touted as an easy all-in-one solution, better than the Raspberry Pi, this was more of a headache than anything I've ever dealt with. You having to seek out help, ask people for assistance to get this thing set up, to get the issues ironed out, not getting responses from the company or timely responses, being constantly moved around, like go to the community site, you know, during the whole Kickstarter thing. It was just ridiculous, man. The system just, it's just, like I said, I've got mine thrown in a box. It was a waste of $100. Sure, it was a little cheaper than if you bought the actual PC that it was based on, but they didn't deliver anything unique. So that's what I wanted to kind of leave this with. And you see, you go to their social medias, they're not even talking about it. You go to Amazon, where they had a bunch of SKUs listed for the system. They just ceased orders on that. You couldn't order them. You can't order them through their website. So they're kind of, you know, they're in the deep end on this thing. They don't know what the heck to do. I'm sure they've got something going on here, but as far as being available to the public, that kind of got put on the back burner. No real information, but that's kind of what my thing is with these gaming systems that overpromise, underdeliver. Whenever I've talked about Kickstarters, Indiegogos, crowdfunding, it's always a thing of like, hey, this is a gamble, this is a risk. There are no promises here, no matter what these people say. There's a lot of damn fine companies who go through Kickstarter and crowdfund who try to do the best they can, and they deliver. And then if there's some kind of mishaps, they're constantly communicating, they're constantly trying to fix things. And that's great. You know, some companies probably shouldn't be using crowdfunding. They should just, you know, front the money that they have, but they don't want to take that risk. Companies like Dream Arcades with the Dreamcade Replay, like, you know, you couldn't have invested your own money. You wanted to have everybody pay for these things because you've had previous failed Kickstarters. Not sure how their business is going with the big machines that they make, but they want you to fund their risk. They want you to take the risk and not them. That's what crowdfunding is diverting the risk, the financial risk, putting it on the consumer instead of the company. The company gets the money. Regardless, they deliver a subpar product. They don't, you know, there's no promises with these things. It's a gamble, it's a risk. You're giving them money to make their dreams come true, right? And if they don't deliver, you're just shit out of luck. You know, luckily, some things like the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, you know, they're trying to recover funds on that due to obvious, you know, shortcomings and failures with what was promised to be delivered. But really, take these kind of things with a grain of salt. You know, when you read what they're talking about, what they're going to deliver, what they're promising, and realize it's a risk, it's a gamble. There is a reason these companies, Atari, you're not the Atari from the 70s and 80s, but you're a company who has money, but you don't want to risk your money. You want us to. So always keep that in mind. Don't put money into a crowdfunding campaign unless it's money that you could live without, and if it just nothing ever comes of it, you can just wipe your hands clean and not even worry about it. That's really what you got to do with these things. So really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I kind of talk about some of this nonsense. Let me know what you think. What are your experiences with these crowdfunding campaigns, these sketchy, shady things that are going on out there? Let me know. Really do appreciate it. Smash that like button, make sweet ass love to that notification bell. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. With that said, guys, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom! Bye!